Is this thing working? Are we live? It looks like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. If you are new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. The live show is really nothing more than an opportunity for me to interact directly with you. It lets me work through some video ideas that sometimes don't quite make it to video, and it's just easier to chat about the topic as as a live show. So that's what I will typically do for this. But a lot of guys use this channel for is really not much more than a background noise generator, and it's usually motorcycle stuff. There's no telling what we're gonna find on this channel though. Is that a little bit better? Man, I am just seeing my own glare over here. There we go. All right, so in this chat, as the title suggests, we're going to be talking primarily about the 636, different modifications that are coming for that bike, what to expect, and what my expectations are of that thing, and also talk a little bit about what I think about that contraption now that I put, right at 400 miles on it. So anyway, let me get up the show and tell portion of this. Ryan is in. Hey, B, nice specs. Thank you very much. Got the ball guy with the flex and the specs. I appreciate that. Yeah, those other ones are good for looking at computer screens because it blocks out a lot of the blue light, takes a lot of the eye fatigue away. But yeah, I got to tell you, it's kind of funny. I can see myself very clearly in the reflection. All right, so let's talk about, first of all, the bike. And I've got to tell you guys straight away, look, I'm having a lot of fun with this bike. The 636 is a bit of a strange bike for me because the more I'm riding it, the more I'm liking it. And I think that it's also another weird scenario where the more I ride this bike, the more I get it. And where my expectations may have been in a certain place with this bike, comparing it to like a GSX-R 600 or GSX-R 750, this bike, it's not trying to be any of those motorcycles. And so the more I started to think about it as I was riding it, trying to get the suspension all set up on this thing, it really did start to grow on me a little bit. And now that it's going to be getting a new set of tires, it's going to be getting re-geared, it's going to be getting the velocity stacks, it's going to be getting the full exhaust. This bike is going to be getting quite a bit of work done to it. Its spa day is going to land here in about a month, it looks like. And it is going to get 1642 gearing. The 42 tooth gear just showed up. And that is down one from 43 from the factory. The front sprocket is from the factory of 15, and we're going up to 16. And I know a lot of guys are going, damn, man, why are you doing that? You're taking so much gear out of it. Look, this bike needs a little bit of gear taken out of it. And this is one of the first things that I noticed about the bike. It is real aggressively geared, and that can be both a good thing and a bad thing. The problem is with this bike that how it's geared, I'm almost always in between gears. If I need to be in second, or if I should be in second, I can really only drop down into third for some of the more technical areas that I'm riding. And if I need to be in sixth, I really need to be in seventh because the bike just does not have long enough legs out the back end. Let me give you guys a quick example of what I'm talking about with that. So when I took the bike out here real recently to finish kind of sorting out the suspension, and I'm basically, once it gets done with its spa day, with everything getting done to it, I'm going to tighten up the rear just a little bit. And then that's going to be all there is to it. The sag is going to be 35 front, 35 rear. I don't really care what static sag is, because I'm not going to respring the bike. But the way it's going to work out is that it's going to be what the bike is more intended to be, which is a fun B&C road middleweight bike, not necessarily a track bike for me. And because of that, I want it to be more compliant. And this gets into the part of the bike where I was thinking, man, maybe I just had a different expectation for this thing. And now that I'm riding it, it's starting to click a little bit. Man, look, this bike isn't a bike for me to be riding at 8 or 9 tenths. It's a bike for me to be riding at 7 or 8 tenths. And even 8 would be kind of pushing it for me with this bike, because there's only so much suspension that I can play with. And to push that bike any farther, I would really need to respring it. But if I were to push that bike any farther, I got a GSXR 1000 for that kind of action, boys. And I got a hell of a good one at that. And by the way, its spa day is coming up here in about 2 weeks. So looking forward to getting the full M4 on that bike, getting the tune, getting the suspension or the bike raised up in front. So we've got a few things going on with that bike too. But the more I thought about it, I was thinking, you know, the 636 is, I don't want to take away from just how sweet of a street bike it is. And the problem when you start trying to ramp up a bike past a certain level or get it into a certain level, like more race than road, the problem that you run into is that you are now compromising everything that makes the bike a good road bike: street compliance, levels of comfort to where the bike doesn't try to break your back if you hit an expansion joint. Things like that. There's a lot that can be distracting when you start to ramp up a bike for fast street use beyond a point where you really need to. And one of the things that this ZX6 has taught me is to just roll with what you got, put a better set of tires on it, because those Pirellis that this bike comes with are flat out dangerous. The S22s should be in this week. That's my tire of choice. And once those tires go on this bike, even in stock form, it's going to be a little bit more of a weapon for me. And I cannot wait to get this thing on the road, especially with the revised gearing. Sam, DM is in. What's up, DM? Sam saying he's broken his wrist for the second time in 8 months. That's not good. Don't break your wrist, man. I've done that twice. Definitely don't get a boxer's fracture either. Those suck. DM saying, damn, sorry to hear that. Sam saying the mean green machine. I tell you what, it'll be mean when I'm done with it. Arzin saying, when you have a full exhaust system, should I get a tune for the O2 sensor? Or will it be fine with just keeping it plugged in? You need to get a tune for that bike. If you've got a full exhaust system, it needs to be tuned for it. And I mean, if it hasn't been tuned, then yeah, you're going to need to run the O2 in that system. But realistically speaking, you need to go ahead and get a full tune for that bike. Sam, oh, seventh. No, what I was talking about is when on the 636, it's buzzing along on the highway at such a high RPM with the stock gearing. Even if you're used to a GSXR 600, you're going to be looking for another gear that doesn't exist. Sam's liking the DCT. DCT is cool stuff, man. I don't know why people hate on it. I think the DCT from Honda is phenomenal. Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, there are some companies like, yeah, Baker does. Remember, Baker was a big deal when they made the Baker 6-speed. But speaking of speed, let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. This is going to be convoluted for me to do. So let me try to do this in a manner that makes sense. I got to figure out which bike is which here. Let me see which one this is. Bear with me just a second, guys. Okay, GSXR 600. Let me just go ahead and show you guys this. And this is why this is one of the other reasons why I went ahead and I'm making the change in terms of gearing, and it's just going to have to stick. If you take a look, and the way that this chart works is we're registering RPM at 130 miles an hour. With the stock gearing, GSXR 600, in sixth gear, you're going to be tacking about 11,500 RPM and about 12,600 RPM in fifth gear. Now, those numbers are important because in a lot of the sweepers that I run, on the back end of some of the longer sweepers, 130, 135 miles an hour is like normal. That, I mean, it would be weird to be going slower than that. So, and in this case, a GSX-R 600 is well within its RPM window of roughly usable power at about 13,000 RPM. Now, if we get into the ZX6, which I think was this one, I might be wrong. I was wrong about that. So that means, excuse me, it will be the other one. Hang on just a second. This will make sense once I get into this. This has got to be this one here. Okay, yeah, so in this case, yeah, here we go. So in this case, we're going to be looking at that current final drive, the one here where it says 1642. The reason why I'm going to this gearing is because, again, I can hit 130 in fifth gear at 12,490. If you notice, going to this gearing, it's basically like I got a second gear or a second overdrive, if you will. Whereas with the factory gearing at 130, I have to be in sixth gear, and I'm going to be tacking 12,500 RPM, and I don't have a lot of over rev after that. There's basically none. And so, at least with the stock tune and velocity stacks and all that. So the idea here is to have a setup that will allow the bike through these longer sweepers where I'm clipping between 125 and 135 to be able to have that extra gear to play with in fifth. And also it'll allow me, and it doesn't really show it on this chart, but it allows me the ability to drop into some of the tighter, more technical corners in second gear, as opposed to being in third. And second gear would have a significantly higher RPM so that I can rail coming out of those tighter, more technical corners without having to dive into them, basically pinging it off the rev limiter, diving into some of those corners if I want to hold on to second gear. So it's kind of weird the way that that bike is geared. Kawasaki is known for this a little bit, or at least my experience with them has been that they're very aggressively geared. And that doesn't always work out the way that I personally would want it. So that's the reason for the gearing. And so the funny thing is, in doing everything that I'm doing to the bike, I've got the new rear sprocket, the new front sprockets on the way. I'm doing everything I can to that bike to allow me to have both a stronger low-speed drive out of corners and to also allow me the longer legs when I do want to run this thing out the back door on some of these longer sweepers. Funny story, by the way. So I was recently running that bike and just kind of getting it sorted out. And again, the suspension on that bike, yeah, it's soft, but it's a street bike, guys. Look, again, I've got a bike. If I want to go out and just put in work, I've got the GSX-R 1000. And I mean, tell me a bike that's better than that for any kind of dollars, right? But for the middleweight, I don't see a need to really have anything with much longer legs than that, than what I'm going to have with the 636. But the funny thing is, this is what I wanted to illustrate. So I'm going through that left right-hander, right? And it really is. It's just a long sweeper to the left, a long sweeper to the right. You're really not on the side of the tire, but you're over a little bit, right? And I'm getting through the left-hand parter. I'm transitioning over to the right. I'm rolling into the throttle. And as I'm rolling into the throttle, the lower part of the peripheral vision, I'm seeing the shift light blinking, and I'm in sixth gear. Well, the reason why it's blinking its ass off is because I'm literally coming up on 13,500 RPM in sixth gear. And it's like, damn, I mean, I'm literally out of gear on that bike, the way that it sits now. So, yeah, that's the whole reasoning behind that. Let's see. Let me check in with you guys real quick. Be doing a little bit of a short show this evening. Let's see. Oh, Ryan's talking about the 7-speed and the high output. Yeah. For the Harley Davidsons, yeah, you do have to. They just don't have enough RPM to carry gears. Oh, Ryan's, yeah, the Softail and the Street Glide, yeah, they're both 6-speeds, and a good one at that. I saw a 9-speed mower. Oh yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so in essence, guys, what I'm doing with the bike is just getting it set up and getting it prepped for what is in essence just going to be a really fun street bike. I just do not have the mentality to go out and rail on that bike the way that maybe I thought that I would, especially the way that I thought that I might have with the GSXR 750. Because, oh man, and I'm going to get just flame broiled for this, but all right, look. Okay, the GSXR 750, love the bike, and yes, I am looking for one still to add to the stable, kind of looking for one that's a bit more ratty to have as a project bike. But the thing about the 750 is that it can never be a 1000, at least not the way that it sits now. And the problem with the 750 is that you have to do so much to it to get it to a point that you want it to be at, right? So you've got to put different tires on it, but we all put different tires on bikes. So that doesn't really count. But for a lot of folks, quick shifters are mandatory. So you've got to at least go that route. That's another $500. Full exhaust to get rid of the absolutely just infuriating dead spot that bike has through the mid-range. And once you do that, the tune, the full exhaust and everything else, you're into that bike for a pretty penny, where realistically speaking, for not much more, just a few dollars more, you can have what I consider to be the absolute best middleweight that money can buy. And I mean, hands down, the best middleweight that money can buy. And that's the Honda CBR 1000 RR, equipped with a factory quick shifter. Do you realize how close that bike came to meeting it, to getting into the stable over here? Like, it was practically a wrap at one point. I started looking at that bike, and the only thing that kept me from bringing that bike into the stable was it does not really have the aftermarket support that any of these other bikes do. So, but I'm telling you right now, where the 636 is going to do exceptionally well once it's re-geared and mapped and velocity stacked and exhausted, where it's going to do really well is it's going to excel at being a middleweight. It is the best middleweight that money can buy, provided that you remember that the GSXR 750 needs a lot of work to get it to the technology, just with a quick shifter, if nothing else, of the 636. Damn, DM, thank you very much. The Tire Fund, Dr. Mike Pirelli's brother, thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. Yeah, damn. Well, thanks a whole lot. Holy mackerel. My man, I tell you what, the money is spent. I can tell you that. So let me tell you what we're getting. Bear with me just 1 second. I'll let you know what we're getting and why we are getting it. Thank you so much, my friend. Let me get this pulled up real quick. Man, I thank you so very much. So let me get back over here. Hold on. Let me get a different screen pulled up. Man, I truly appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Man. I tell you, I'm just going to use Revzilla's Well, maybe we can just use this one. Here we kind of go. Here we go. Man, thank you so much, my friend. I can't say thank you enough. I'm very humbled. Thank you so very much. Well, let me tell you where the money's been spent. So this has been my go-to tire for a lot of my latest motorcyclage. And it's the Bridgestone S22s. Guys, I have had S22s bail me out of my own stupidity on more than a few occasions. We have proven time and time again that on the street, it is really hard to beat the S22 from a road feel point of view, from a grip point of view, from a forgiveness point of view. I can't find an area that the S22 has ever given up anything on any other tire that I've ever ridden on. It's the tire that I fitted the Z900 RS with when all else failed. Put a set of S22s on it, did amazingly well. The GSXR 1000 got him. The GSXR 750 got him. And now the 636 is going to get him. Again, I just cannot say enough good things. One other thing I'll say about the S22 that's so good is that the front end feel is better than the R11. The S22 is, from a front end feel, when you feel the bike getting on the side of the tire, when you start driving through corners, the road feel is extremely good. You never get the sense that it's sketched out. Oh, and here's the other thing. The S22s, or the 23s for that matter, they really don't care what pressure you run them at. I've played with these tires now for quite some time, and I got to tell you, I've never really had an issue with them at, like, I typically run 35, 36, or 35, 37. So 35 front, 36 rear, 35 front, 37 rear. But even if you run these things out there at 36, 40, they don't really seem to care. So, you know, I've been able to set up bikes, and this is the other thing with the S22s that I like so much. If I ever had any kind of a question about suspension setup with a bike at all, I knew that it wasn't the tires that were throwing me off. And this goes back to the GSXR 1000. One of the crazy things about the S22, and one of the reasons why I'm bringing the front of that bike up, is because I'm getting so much feel out of the fronts with the S22s. It's almost like it's like overstimulated. So what I'm doing with these is I'm getting it set up to where it's a little bit more like a standard bike, but in terms of actual front ride height, I'm bringing it up by about 12 millimeters. Actually, I'm actually stepping it up quite a bit. But the idea with that is to have a setup that I don't have to be as far back on the bike, and I can, when I drop the bike in, I've got a little bit more of a direct feel. Anyway, long story short, everybody's a little bit different when it comes to riding, and this is one of the key takeaways for me. But yeah, thank you so much, DM. I truly do appreciate that. I'm hoping these tires are going to be in here pretty quick. Oh, I wanted to show you guys the velocity stacks. I didn't. Come on, thing. There we go. All right. All right. So in terms of other modifications, you guys know I'm going with the Tech 1 Carbon from M4 for the exhaust. And that is going to be a setup that I think is going to do exceptionally well. I can tell you that my experience with any of the M4 products has been really good in terms of either outright power. The fit and finish is really nice. There's a lot to like about the M4. But one of the things that one of the things that I will say also about the M4 is that it's just a phenomenal performing product. And so we're going to go with the Tech 1, going to get a little bit more torque out of that pipe than the shorter systems, and a little bit more horsepower out of that pipe too. But with all that being said, this is kind of where we are going to end up, it looks like. So hopefully that is showing through here. It's going to be going to, we're going to be using Two Wheel Dyno Works as the tuners for this thing. And again, I mean, just take a look at how this thing winds up. Now, let me do something real quick. I'm going to zoom this in just a little bit, because what I want to show, and I want to just kind of address something here. This is the curve between a bike that has stock velocity stacks and a bike that has the aftermarket, the Two Wheel Dyno Works velocity stacks. The reason why I wanted to show this is because this right here, where it starts to lose power with the stock velocity stacks, is extremely noticeable on the bike, because you spend so much time up in this area. You're spinning. Sorry, guys, we got an allergy thing going on down here like crazy. Because you spend so much time in this 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,000 RPM range. This is 15,000 right here. This becomes very relevant. Stuff that happens below 9 or 10,000 RPM, it's good to know that the bike is running good, but the reality is that you're just not in that range too often. And the other thing is that this bike is already making a ton of mid-range for a middleweight. You're not really looking for more there. You're looking for more a little bit farther out. And the main issue, though, is that you can feel the bike. It really does. This chart doesn't really tell the whole tale, to be honest, because let me scroll this out real quick to where hopefully you guys can see this. What'll end up happening when you ride the bike, can I move me? This is 12, so that's 13,000 RPM. Right around here, this 12-ish thousand RPM, even from the factory, you're really feeling this thing diving off here. And once you get a tune and you're able to just barely carry this back 13,000 RPM, you're losing this whole chunk, this whole 2,000 RPM, realistically, or about 1,500 RPM worth of power output, but you really feel the bike nose over out there. So the idea to get around that is to go with a set of velocity stacks. And so that is exactly what we're doing. So these are the velocity stacks that we're going to be going with, made out of the same material that the factory velocity stacks are made out of. So it's that rubberized type of a product. It looks kind of funny. I get it. But even talking to Chris Moore, he was saying, look, this is the better way to go. So let me pull up that dyno chart again. And keep in mind, guys, this dyno chart is not stock versus, it's not a stock versus tuned and whatever. This is everything we got to throw at it with stock velocity stacks, full exhaust, full tuning, everything, versus the bike with all of that plus the velocity stacks. And it's kind of crazy too, because and here's the other funny thing. You think 13,000 RPM is a lot until you ride a bike that feels like it needs 15 or 16,000 RPM. And again, that's the good thing. You've got plenty of over rev out here on the backside of the RPM range too. So, you start looking at running this bike out to, a natural RPM for this bike really is 14,500 RPM. And I mean, you're talking about, a 9 horsepower difference way out there, and way out there on a bike that is supposed to rev is what you're looking for. Down here, it's just, you're not really going to see that. that often, not when you're in it to win it. If you're just kind of putting around on the bike, here's the beauty of it. The way I've got it re-geared, the whole idea is that you drop a gear or you drop a couple of gears if you want to get rolling. It's a middleweight. You can't ride it like a leader bike, and you can't think of it like a leader bike. You've got to think of it as a bike that you only want to have living from realistically 12,000 RPM to 15,000 RPM. Everything else is just flyover country to get you to that point. Because you got to remember, I mean, this setup is making peak torque right around 12,000 RPM. So that's the reason why I went this route. And I'm saying you can see where it falls on its nose. You really can. And in stock form, and this is the other thing. If you were to compare this to stock, the dyno chart with the velocity stacks is higher than the stock output everywhere. I mean, it's not even close. So what I liked about the Two Wheel Dyno Works dyno chart is that they're not pulling any punches. They're saying, look, if you value having this torque hit down here, up to about 9,000 RPM, stick with the stock velocity stacks. They're really good. But if not, you need to go a different route. Oh, and this is the other thing you got to remember. Remember when we were talking about gearing on this bike? All right, so these middleweights are aggressively geared as it sits. I can tell you that once the secondary throttle plates have been tweaked, the thing is that this bike is going to be rowdy in first and second gear. So the whole idea is, well, what this torque down here isn't going to do me a whole lot of good if all that is doing is trying to drag the front of the bike up into the air, which is a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, but believe me, I can do all of that on my own. What I don't need is I don't need a bike that's going to start trying to get squirrely in those lower RPMs in first and second gear. So losing a little bit of torque down there isn't necessarily a bad thing, considering how aggressively these bikes are geared. Even though I am removing gearing out of this bike, it's still going to be aggressive. By the standard of GSXR 750, it's still 15% more aggressive than the 750. So even with pulling all the gear out of this bike that I'm going to. So there's a lot to soak in there. And I'm thinking that go ahead and, taking a little bit of the torque away from the bottom, spreading it out a little bit on the top end, along with the gearing and with the velocity stacks, is going to make for an incredibly smooth bike. Once it's de-restricted, it's going to be a little monster. And by the way, let's not forget 127 horsepower out of a ZX6R, out of a 636. That's already that's into GSXR 750 horsepower and torque. I mean, you have to have, let me think about this. That 127 to the rear tire is what a GSXR 750 will put to the rear tire if you have a cat delete pipe, a slip-on, a tune, and probably a filter. So now with a full exhaust, yeah, the 750 is going to make a little bit more power, but that's not really the point here. What I'm talking about now is at this power level, you're already into, you have now trespassed into GSXR 750 territory by about 7 horsepower. It's not a small amount. Stock GSXR 750 is doing good to make 120 horsepower to the rear tire. Now we're going to be making at least tuned and cat delete pipe GSXR 750 horsepower with a bike with 15% more aggressive gearing. Yeah, it's probably okay to lose a little bit of the torque down low. So anyway, that's kind of the logic behind the what with all that. So hopefully that brings you guys up to speed a little bit. I know it's a lot to soak in. I'm bringing up a lot of charts and, stuff like that. But, the main thing is just to see what the progress is, what we're up to, why we're going about what we're doing, and to put some things into perspective as well, and where the 636 lies against the rest of the field in these middleweights. And as it turns out, well, I mean, they're pretty good. And again, to also just to let you guys know, look, if I wanted to turn the 636 into a track bike, I wouldn't have gotten a 636. I'd have gotten a GSXR 600 or just some ratty GSXR 750. The 636, the way that it's working out is it's looking like it's going to be one hell of an awesome street bike that will take on the more aggressive type of riding that I do in stride. Up to a certain point, this thing is just going to be in lockstep with anything that most folks would try to throw at it. I can tell you that. I can't wait to put this thing really through a series of stronger tests than I've been able to lately. But again, tires got me a little bit sketched out. I was telling DM I had to take the GSXR 1000 out for a palate cleansing run, as sketched out as I was with these freaking Pirellis. So again, DM, thank you so very much, brother, from the bottom of my heart. Thanks, man, for the support for the channel. It means a ton. But with that, guys, I do have to go ahead and wrap it up. I got to get back to work. Listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. If you've hung out this long and you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. It helps the channel way more than you know. DM saying the 636 will be the better, the half liter big bike eater. I tell you what, I got to say this about the 636. I can kind of see where they're coming from with this slightly more compliant suspension, and I can't wait to put it to the test. But I have a sneaking suspicion that once I get a tire on this thing, it's gonna be a little heathen. And I can already tell you that there have been times, even with the sketch level midnight tires that are on this thing, where I've carried more mid corner speed than I ever had with the GSXR 750 or any of the leader bikes. Only because I bonsai'd the corner. It just pinned it. I mean, I just kept it pinned. So yeah, it's definitely got some promise. I can't wait to bring you guys the results. But with that, again, DM, thank you again from the bottom of my heart for the support for the channel. Truly do appreciate it. But I got to get back to work, guys. Hope to see you guys on the next one. Looks like the live stream worked fairly well. We've got some upcoming videos. I've still got to do the post-ride review on the GSX S1000 GX. Be on the lookout for that. We got some other bikes that I'll be testing coming up soon. So stick with us. We got more to come. But with that, guys, I do got to get back to work. Y'all take care. Thank you so much.